Hi, this is Lisa from Questions and Narrative. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is Tuesday, the 19th of May. And guess what? It's still cold in Puglia, Italy. And we've got more rain. But I am here with Honey Golden. Honey, how are you? And how's the weather in Colorado?
I'm good. It's going to be like 60 today, which is not very warm.
No.
It's been very interesting. The weather was like 80 last week, and now it's going to be 60. And you can really see the weather control. It's so obvious. Like there's all these X's in the sky, and then there's all these chemtrails, and then there's all this weather change. And
Mm.
when I talk about it, it's really funny, because I'm like, my husband is obsessed with the weather because he used to always be working outdoors.
Yeah.
And it's really funny to watch. I'm like, well, look what they're doing. They're changing the weather. And he's like, like he's not
It's like, are you
totally
kidding
there yet, not
me?
totally on board.
Well, it's funny. Yeah, I know someone who really loves to watch the weather too. He's a sailor, and he'll talk about, and he'll say that now it's considered a super El Nino. So, do we have a super El Nino? And is there really such a thing as a super El Nino?
No.
Okay, so we're just using that to
The
explain it, but
El
the weather
Nino
has
is
been
all a
crazy.
scam.
Ah,
Yeah.
fabulous. Well, as all the weather conditions are. So let's ask this question, honey. Let's ask your higher self because this weather thing keeps coming up because we've had the strangest weather patterns here. And right now, New York City, where my daughter is 90 degrees. And then here it's 30 degrees cooler. And it's just usually the inverse of that. So, what is the intention right now of what they're doing with the weather?
It's really disclosure. They're really pushing it. And they have the new chemtrail movie on Amazon that's been out for 6 months. They really want people to get it, but it's a slow process for people to absorb the information that, oh yeah, the weather is completely manufactured.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
what will it look like? Will it go back to what we thought the original weather patterns were on the planet for the places that we're in? So let's give an example. So the Northern Hemisphere, let's talk about like North America on the East Coast. What will it look like there? Or will the entire planet look the same?
The whole planet will look the same. So eventually we'll just, as they taper the weather control off, as people start to get wise and start yelling about it. And the ET thing might actually bring some of that knowledge in too about the weather. But as people are like, no, we're not tolerating that anymore. So Florida has banned chemtrails. So
Yes.
as chemtrails get banned over and over, and I think eventually it'll just be nations that ban it. So as that happens, the weather will become the true terrarium weather that we're supposed to have. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you look at some of the World's Fair photos, Chicago had enormous cactus outside. That was normal for Chicago.
Wow.
Now
Wow.
Chicago has like some of the most intense weather, as far as snow. A cactus could never survive outside in Chicago now.
Hmm. So will there be seasons or will there just be this constant moderate weather pattern?
I always get there will not be seasons, but there will be, depending on your altitude or your environment. So, say you're on the beach versus in the forest, then the temperature will vary, but the average temperature will be 74 and the average nighttime temperature will be 50.
Perfect sleeping weather, perfect
Yeah.
daytime weather. Wonderful.
Mhm.
That's great. But will we have the variations in like leaves? Will the leaves of trees go away? Will we have the blossoming of trees?
Um, I think it's going to be kind of a weird process for deciduous trees.
Hmm.
They'll still have a cycle, but the cycle will be more apparent, like if they're high in the mountains, I would say.
Mhm.
But they will adjust and they will still blossom. I don't think they'll drop all their leaves though.
Hmm. Because I mean, I don't, I mean, the colors when it comes in the fall are beautiful. I would miss that for sure. And I
Yeah.
really miss in the spring as the flowers blossom on the trees. The bursts of color are just
Mhm.
spectacular. I really love that. So we've also been hearing a lot about how we've manipulated the landscaping of pretty much the world. And they only allow to plant male trees versus female trees, which then
Yeah.
has increased allergic reaction. Are we becoming aware of these things? And is that true? Does that male only tree the one who creates the allergic reaction for people, more pollen in the air?
Yeah. Yeah. Even some like Claritin, I think, admitted that.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they did it is because they didn't want people to have food.
Right. So you could go along the street and pick an orange off of a
Yeah,
tree,
just
which is
pluck.
what you can do in Europe, which you can do in Morocco, you can do in other places, yeah. And you're not going
Mhm.
to starve. Mhm. So that independence, that food independence again, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, so the weather impacts food production and impacts what we plant, impacts pretty much everything on our health, which is very
Mhm.
interesting. All right, this weather thing is going to interesting. So I hope this continues to unfold. I guess we just have to use our creation to support us from moving the weather into what we can do and realize how it is still being manipulated.
Yeah.
Well, I'm ready to not manipulate the weather down here in Europe because it
Mhm.
continues to rain. So let's talk about something. I thought one of the things I've been hearing a lot about, and I love the pattern recognition here, is that there are more and more information about our light bodies and the importance of our light bodies. And the distinction about how we're experiencing the world right now, still in this 3D physical body, but the light body is different and how we need to connect that. So, could you do a little, first of all, explaining about what the light body is and how we're supposed to be interacting with the light body?
Well, to me, the light body is the entire body. So your body emits light. And for others, it may be the soul egg body, because you have the toroidal field. And then within that, you have the soul, and it kind of looks like an egg. And then within that, you have the human body. And if you just look at the word human, it's hue. So there's different hues of color for the
Mm-hmm.
human body. But your
Mm-hmm.
aura is more what I would call the light body. Um, but everything is made of light. So there's different degrees of, what is the light body. So it depends on who you're talking to, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But everything's made of light, and that comes from sound. So your consciousness would be the light body. But I remember years ago, because I've, had a lot of health stuff. And years ago, when I would cough, I never saw anything at night if I was coughing. Now,
Mm-hmm.
when I cough, and this has been over the last probably 5 years, I see light and it's almost like it's like leaking out of my eyes. And I can see it, from my nose, from my eyes, and I'm coughing and light is showing up, you know, and my eyes are closed. So I can see
Mm-hmm.
that light trying to come out. And it's like cough, and it's like boom, light, cough, boom, light. So
Mm-hmm.
we have more of our soul in our body and around our body than we've ever had at this point during ascension. So you've got so much light within you and right
Mm-hmm.
around you than you've ever had. And that's why we're so intuitive. That's why our frequency's rising. all of that stuff. So it is so important.
That's so interesting because they're talking about it from the perspective of the light body is interacting more with your higher self, with your
Mm.
soul. So it sounds like in some ways you were describing it as a little bit more about your soul. But you also mentioned something that I thought was very helpful. And that was another thing I've been hearing and also experiencing before hearing it. It's like when you close your eyes, you still see. You're still seeing something. And a lot of it is light. Like I've expressed to you that when I close my eyes, first of all, I will see if there's like the sun or something around. I see particular colors and then they go in different directions. But I'm also seeing the movement, whether it's plasma or whether it's electrical currents or just different lines. And I've always seen that throughout my whole life, but it's getting much more clear about that. Is that part of the light body frequencies that we're shifting, or does that resonate with you at all?
It is part of that, but it's also your soul is showing you some of the layers of the astral plane. Because we always think that we're like separate. Oh, we're in this little bubble on Earth and it's all separate. Actually, it's all made out of the same stuff.
Or made of the
So
plasma?
we're seeing through the veil. So you're seeing through the veil and you're seeing the energies. Yeah.
Today, I saw as I was looking through a glass window over lunch, and it was like there were clouds out because obviously we had a little rain, but it was cloud, it was clearing up. And I saw this tower, could have been a reflection of a tower like a 3G, a 4G or a 5G tower. But then there was a building underneath it, but it wasn't really part of what the building was. Was I seeing something there?
Yeah. You were seeing a different timeline. Yeah.
I felt like it was like really wild. It just felt like it was like out of a different
Mhm.
world. I was accepting it. And I was saying like that. And I thought, this is very interesting. So seeing different things right now.
Yeah. People are seeing
Wow.
different beings and they're seeing them with their eyes wide open now, too.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah.
that's interesting because we had a Truth Social by the president of the United States. I think what's his name, and we don't hear it very often. I think it's Trump,
No.
right? Trump.
Yeah.
And 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 he was walking with what we would consider a non-terrestrial. Honey, should we just ask that question? What, first of all, was that a real non-terrestrial or an actor?
Actor for sure.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, because that
here's the
that that
picture.
extraterrestrial was yeah, exactly, in very good shape, right? And are
Yeah.
those chains holding
A
him like
very
he's in chains?
buff ET.
Yeah. Buffy, exactly. A very buffy T. Exactly. My first was like, okay.
Yeah. With a rope. I'm like, whatever. Like,
Yeah. So what is that trying to communicate? What are you getting out of that?
what I'm getting is basically it's just to really bring people's attention to that they are going to be seeing ETs soon. And somehow we're able to be in power still over. Like, so Trump is saying, don't worry, we got it under control. What do they have it under control with? Some dorky rope that looks like it came from, a farm or whatever.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
yeah, right.
mm. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Okay, so it's just another thing about disclosure because we're getting so much disclosure on the UFO side. So what do you think is happening right now? Is humanity ready, or is there a particular timeline that's ready for the disclosure of non-human life form?
Sure that the White Hats have a disclosure point, like where they want to do it. But I feel like what's gonna happen is they'll get closer and they'll release more and more information, and then the ETs will kind of take over because they have their own ideas about what they want it to look like.
Yeah,
And they're not going to allow it to be completely cheesy, is what it feels
I
like
hope
to me.
not. Because
Yeah.
we've built up to this storyline. So when was the last time that we knew and interacted with those who were not human on this planet?
In a big way, I think it was the 50s, you know, but it's been going on forever, before and since.
Mhm.
But in a big way, like for humanity, it was the 50s for this group, you know, of humanity. Before that, the Tartarians were interacting, the Egyptians were interacting, the Romans were interacting, everybody was interacting.
So when did we stop interacting with them? Which reset, I guess?
This last reset.
So it hasn't
That's
been
where
that
they
long
really pushed it. Yeah.
then. Very, very, very interesting.
Mhm.
When are we going to get the real story of human origins? Or and
When they
has it
start
been disclosed?
the Vatican, the Vatican will be the one when they get into that information because they had
Who's
it
in
all.
control? Yeah, who's in control of the Vatican information now?
Oh, the White Hats are. Yeah.
Mhm.
And we just see actors with the Vatican.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this UFO thing, we keep inching our way there. We're going to get there. So it hasn't been that long that we didn't interact with them, but we're going back to that because we've forgotten everything. So this will be exciting. This is, a plot twist. We keep on doing the plot twist on that forgetfulness. But on the light body, is there anything else that why does it keep on coming up now in the collective consciousness on social media all over the place? What's the significance of that?
If you think about the oversoul, so let's just use the pine cone. If you think about the oversoul and all the fractals and the multiverse, we started
Mhm.
out with 10% of one of these pieces in the body. So over the last 6, 7 years, that's been increasing, and more parts of us have been coming in to help with ascension. So you may have half of your pine cone in your body or just directly around it, and the rest of you is communicating with those parts of you. So basically, it's about knowing your entire soul, your
Mhm.
oversoul. And not your whole oversoul will come into the body for ascension because some
Mhm.
of your oversoul is like way up in the seventh density, or, they have lives that they're living that are not important for this, but we've had many lifetimes that had to be resolved. And those, a lot of them that we've resolved, we've healed, they've come into the body to help.
Mhm.
So we're multifaceted at this point.
So that is really sort of the definition of more light coming in,
Yeah.
and that's why you think we're getting this whole concept of light body. Well, it's very interesting to me, and it's sort of like the language that just keeps on coming up, that we're sharing with each other the things that are important, that are relevant, that are coming in. And that concept of the light body seems to be a pattern, something that's really coming in right now. Another pattern that I'm seeing is the discussion on the digital. Now, we've talked about digital, meaning technology. We've got this digital ID. We've got all the different things that go into everything that we do. We're going to digital money, or we really are already in digital money. We've
Yeah.
got digital IDs that we're trying to consolidate who we are into some numbers or some identification. We've got AI, which is all digital. We've got all these things. But this concept of digital, when you have the digital ID, becomes a representation of a biological form for our safety only, honey, of course, we know. What are the unspoken consequences of using that digital ID? as a representative of our biological form?
So it's disclosure, for one thing, of what they wanted to do, but it's also disclosure of the past, which is what popped in. So think about the straw man. What did they do at birth? They took you over and created a corporation with all capital letters, and that's who you are, and that's who they controlled the whole time, is this representative of you, which is why you have a birth certificate, a straw man
Oh,
account. Yeah.
yeah.
So basically, I think that it will be a reflection of that people get to see. And it's a way for them to stand up for themselves and say, no, you're not
Mm-hmm.
allowed to own my face. You're not allowed to own my fingerprints. It's my
Mm-hmm.
body. And that will be a way that people become more sovereign, and it will bleed into the whole straw man thing as well. Like it'll be something that people can relate to because they've been pushed with this. They'll then see, oh, they had already done it before.
That's really good because you just said that the really critical part is that the straw man turned you into a corporate, when birth turned you into a corporation, which then
Mhm.
reflected you and they owned that representation of you. That's
Yeah.
exactly what the digital ID is, another representation. Does that mean that the birth certificate thing is they're fearful that that's not going to work anymore and they needed something better? Or are we going into something more like if if we couldn't get the vaccine to have a some way to take you over, we're going to use the digital ID to take the representation and take away your sovereignty? Do any of those resonate with you?
Yeah, I think with the distorted world, that's how it would have been. It would have been another way to take you over until you become basically like a robotic, totally controlled person. And you have to hide your feelings all the time and, you know, basically act and look a certain way, just like that social currency they were talking about.
Mhm.
Um, but now they're just pushing it so hard because they want it to be disclosed. So a lot of
Mm,
things we're seeing right now, they're being pushed so they can be disclosed. Just like
mhm,
the
mhm.
hantavirus. All of it is being pushed so that people can be aware. This is
Yeah.
where you were going. We are saying no to that now. Are you saying no? So the people that are saying yes, and they're still freaking out and they're in fear that the hantavirus has all of a sudden become an airborne virus where you can breathe on somebody and give it to them, which I was never
Mm,
aware that it could do that, right? So all of a sudden it's morphed into that kind of a virus. They're splitting off. I mean, we're really in the choice point of where do you want to be? Do you want to be
yeah.
living in fear or do you want to be living in love? And it's really simple if you think of it that way. But
Yeah.
there's really painful disclosure being pushed.
But that's really interesting because you've got this digital ID keeps coming back. So we thought we had it, we thought the UK was going to push it, then it got pulled back. Now the UK is pushing it again. Why in the UK?
Well, the UK is like where the head of the snake was kind of, if you think about it. Yes, there's the Rothschilds are in Israel, and they took over that country, but they took over England first, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and they've run everything from England for a really long
Mm-hmm.
time. And that's why it's so dreary there. Like it's a lot of the time it's just cold, it's wet, it's always overcast. And
Yeah.
it's because a lot of the elite or deletes there were reptilian. So they were comfortable in their cave-like, you know, arrangement.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
It worked for them, but in terms of like the control type of thing, I think in a way there's something about the personality. Like the British were protesting this week, and no mainstream media picked it up. Only some of the alt media and actually only social media picked it up. Massive protest, and this digital idea is being rammed down their throats. And across Europe, they're trying to implement this digital ID again. You can't do anything. You can't participate in the way the world is. So this digital ID, is it a representation? Are they trying to integrate us into the this? I guess in a way, we're trying to become this droid or something here right now, and they're really focusing in on the UK and Europe right now.
Yeah. Well, that's what they wanted to do. So think about it like the Epstein files. What are they doing? They're touching on it. They're bringing more stuff out. They're touching on it. They're bringing more stuff out. So in Europe, it's one of the big things that they wanted to do first over there and then spread it around the world. So that's the Epstein files of Europe. It's like we're going to keep pushing until it's a hard, complete no.
Mm-hmm. Will we be standing up in all timelines or just a few timelines?
Well, the timelines that are splitting away, the fear timelines, they will not be standing up. So they may experience something scary as they go, but they're ascending as well. They're just not ascending with their body. So, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them at this point are holographic. So they just kind of fizzle out, you know.
Okay. From this experience of like that.
Yeah. If you're really curious about it, like for the audience, go look at the holodeck on Star Trek and really start to figure out how that relates to your actual life. Who's real,
Mm.
who's not. I mean, people are starting to figure it out pretty well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really, I mean, their questioning is like, that real, and how much you really can create exactly the experience that you choose
Mhm.
to experience. It's
Yeah.
very, very, very interesting. Very good. So this digital ID keeps coming back and it's trying to teach us another thing, but I love how you framed it and compared it to the birth certificate, which was really big for a while and then sort of fizzled out and not enough people know. So this is very exciting to me because that has a lot of implications to do with our financial enslavement, which has really been a
Mhm.
key sort of control mechanism of that. So let's then talk a little bit about Iran. First of all, I want to ask you about a guy who's been making a lot of noise on social media across TikTok and YouTube. I want to talk to this guy, Dr. Jen, is Jiang, and he's a professor, and he has been predicting things such as Trump's second political win, the war with Iran, how the US will lose the Iran war. And he's coming out again and he's saying he's looking at it a little bit like the Promethean Action Group, giving you a varied perspective, but he also has an agenda saying the US loses. It's not good. China wins. And he's Chinese. What's his agenda?
I feel like he's actually part of the White Hats.
Mm-hmm. He certainly knows a
So,
lot. Yeah.
yeah. And the Chinese win thing, that's another point of disclosure because that's what would have happened.
Mm.
So it
What
would
would
have
they have
happened in the
won?
past.
What would they
So
have
we're
won?
getting disclosure from all angles, like all over the place. And a lot of the stuff that we had researched years ago is now right on the surface, just floating around for everybody to see. And he's got mostly, like, he's pretty aware, feels like. But mostly he's on an agenda himself. And that agenda is he's there to disclose. Because if we had been in a negative timeline, then he wouldn't be there. he wouldn't be able to say a lot of the stuff he's saying. Like he would have
Mm-hmm.
been censored. And in
Yeah.
2020, everybody was censored. And that's when you knew there was still a lot of control of, basically from the dark of
Yeah.
all the information. And now they're not in control whatsoever anymore. And they're filtering everything to try and finally get it back to the correct, honest stuff, honest
Yeah.
information. But it's like a process. And humanity
Uh-huh.
tends to need intensity for
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you don't change until you're pushed.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're really pushed right now.
We are, and this guy, this professor, has a very clear, articulate way of presenting information. And then he gives you a very different perspective, like Promethean Action does. It says this is, how the world was. He's basically talking about moving from the unipolar world where the United States controls everything, the US petrodollar controls everything, to a multipolar world. However, he doesn't put it in the perspective that he puts in the perspective that the US loses. When I think his real point is, in the way it could be, is that, let me ask it this way. Is the US, would the US losing or supposedly visually losing the Iran war, is that something that we're meant to see? Is that helpful to pull apart the old world agenda?
Oh,
No?
yeah. Now it may look like the Iran war comes to a stalemate
Mm-hmm.
and the US decides to pull out, and that may look like a win.
For some, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I don't see it as like nobody's coming into America and creating chaos from Iran. Like,
Right.
because it's all mostly baloney if you really look into it. So, that could be part of the agenda. Oh, we've had to pull out because we're not sure what they're doing. They have something that we didn't know they had or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they need to expose the Israeli government as well.
Yeah.
And you can see
Yeah.
how that's happening constantly. So
Yeah.
it's whatever the balance is right there. And he has a really good idea of what's actually going on.
Mm-hmm. So he
Yeah.
is part of that because he has a very unique perspective. He's sharing it and he's everywhere. And I don't think you get that much exposure without a little assist from your friends,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah, you get a big assist.
Yeah, exactly. And he's gotten a lot of exposure. And then also on the technology side, there's something that's coming out that's kind of interesting as well. They're talking about how now awareness of how Europe is trying to move away from the US-based technology platforms. However, the US is controlling the current infrastructure of technology, whether it be social media, whether it be AI domination, or the platforms and how we interact, how we handle bookings, how we handle finances. Is that something that people will become aware of? And is that a positive for us right now?
I think they will become very aware of it. It feels like it will be turned to the positive. Um, there's a lot of weird, creepy things that will be turned to the positive for the future. And they look scary right now, but
Hmm.
they'll be shifted into the positive for humanity. And I think, we're basically being shown the Hunger Games, in a lot of ways. And
Hmm.
that will switch.
Very interesting. So, because in a way you don't think about this, but if the US government or if the US tech company said that I wasn't being treated well, they could turn off the tech that everybody
Oh, yeah.
uses. very easily. And I think that maybe like when you look at the current meeting that was in China with Xi Jinping, why all the tech icons were there, the tech leaderships. So let's ask the question more directly. What was the reason for Trump's visit to Xi Jinping, and why did he have the tech company leadership there with him?
It was a capitulation awareness, but then also think about all of them being there. That's a scare tactic too. So when
Explain
you
more on
link it
that.
up with that professor and he says
Mhm.
China's going to win or whatever. Also, like the robots are being made in China, all this stuff, is being created in China because it's been the main manufacturing
Hub,
area.
yeah.
So that has to be exposed too. And bringing all the tech gurus over there is going to help expose it. And it's going to make people afraid. So if they're afraid, they're going to pay attention,
Okay.
you know.
Okay, so we've got this whole thing. So there's more to come out probably about that meeting because it seemed very important. How important was that meeting that was just in China?
It feels really important for the relationship with China because I think it's going to be US, China, and Russia as far as like world leadership for a very short time, and then it'll just spread out everywhere.
Okay.
But those three are kind of a big deal right now as far as how is it all going to look. And
Mm.
I saw it's all over social media right now that Putin has banned Satanism,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, oh, that's funny. So he's going to really expose the deletes, the Rothschilds. That's what his role is going to be, is that kind of exposure. The deletes, the Rothschilds, that's what his role is going to be, is that kind of exposure. And
Mm-hmm.
also, I think he is going to be the big one that introduces the ETs and then the technology and all of the stuff. So
Mm-hmm. Kind of goes off and does. And that has not been very strong. And then you also have the supposed big population center of India that never had any control. So what happened to India? Why do they never have a global sort of stronghold given the size of their population?
England. So England happened to India and basically broke the confidence, the self-confidence of the people, and definitely
Mm-hmm.
kept that up in a sneaky way.
Oh, that's very
I feel
interesting.
like, yeah.
Wow. Boy, that really resonates. Wow. Wow. From Washington, D.C., the city of London, and the Vatican to now US, Russia, China being the three of everything. The find him provocative, just like the Promethean Action people are provocative in terms of shifting the way you look at geopolitics from a different perspective. But Zheng doesn't look at it as, he looks at it as a win-loss, and he does say that China wins in certain ways. And I think that's also provoking to say, maybe not exactly those words, but maybe the expression of that is slightly different than how you're articulating that. That
Yeah,
seems to
it's
be correct.
amazing. Yeah.
It is. Very interesting. So let's ask one other thing. So another thing that's been coming up around everything is about these data centers. You and I have talked about data centers for a couple times now because there's definitely something there. Incredible use of power, incredible use of water, all these natural resources. We're not describe, first of all, are these data centers doing, are they doing this thing called the fusion? Are they a fusion center?
I get no, but that's what the next narrative is.
And why do they want that narrative out there?
Well, I feel like what they were gonna do, so this is part of the negative agenda. It feels like they were gonna pollute a lot of the water and the now they just
Interesting.
want to show people that something negative was happening and they want it to look as negative as they can. So when people fight the data centers from coming in, they're actually being sovereign. So it's all about energy. Um,
Mm.
it really doesn't feel like very many of them are going to actually come into fruition. And the ones that are, they don't feel like they're doing what they say.
Okay.
Um,
And what do you think they're doing?
well, so there's different things going on, and there's different things being built there that are actually nations being something else. I don't
Hmm.
feel like they want us to know what that is because it's for the future and it's positive. Um,
About their things about what we're hearing right now. Very important. Light body, digital. This Dr. Jing is also talking about things like around like the Promethean Action Group is talking about around how important that is to have this global shift, this new framework that you're talking about, that is not just the sort of city center states that are this fusion center. Let's do one last thing and about sort of health. So we've been talking about oral health for world nations and not in the third world nations. But so why did so many people of the first world, the Western world, have so
we're told that parasites don't exist. First thing we did is go to two people in the body. And I think a lot of the vaccines are a problem because it's them teeth as soon as they start to come in. So, I mean, I had mine pulled when I was like 15, and they're really destroying the oral health on purpose. And what I heard is the fluoride actually makes tiny holes in the teeth. So
Mm.
you have products that are creating a lot of nastiness.
Yes, and then it's also, they say that nutrition has an impact on the teeth clenching, which seemed to be a big part of how we're damaging our teeth. Can you ask her yourself, was there anything specific on that? What was causing that?
It's a frequency. So it's a frequency that they're
Mm.
broadcasting, and a lot of it is through.
Yeah, because
Creates
you
a
talked,
nervous system issue. And if you think about it, it's also right next to the ears.
that makes you hum for like 3 minutes.
Really positive.
Yeah.
Make sure that you have stuff around your technology that starts to mitigate that issue as well, because it affects your cellular structure, it affects your nervous system, and we use it all the time. You know, I don't know about
Mm-hmm.
you, but like I'm on a screen almost the whole day.
There's a lot more to be discussed about oral health. I think there's more information coming out about that. I think that's really important, but we'll stop on that there. So, honey, I think
Cracked tooth. And I didn't think about it until amazing. As I've got I don't follow stem, and that tooth still lives there and has come back together. So the crack was repaired, the breakage was repaired. What does it look like? Probably doesn't look like a normal tooth, but it still lives there. So that's good for his health in
yeah.
general. So I wanted to bring that up because somebody had asked about it and I didn't address it with them.
US right now that they like to hide that kind of information. It's too important, but our teeth are really sort of our lifeblood. And it sounds like it was kind of this idea about that
Yeah.
decay. That's what they talk about, decay. Well, wonderful. Well, honey, thank you so much. It's great to be with you again. Thanks everybody for this. This is Lisa from Question the Narrative, wishing everybody a great day.
Love you guys.
Ciao.